This is lecture part 3 of chapter number 5, that is elasticity and its application. Price elasticity and total revenue. Continuing our scenario, that is the website business. If you raise your price from $200 to $250, would your revenue rise or fall? And we can calculate revenue by multiplying price and quantity. So the formula for revenue is equals to price multiplied by quantity. A price increase has two effects on revenue. Higher price means more revenue on each unit you sell. But we all know if you raise your price, you are probably going to sell fewer units, but you sell fewer units, that is, lower quantity due to the law of demand, and so these two things work against each other. Which of these two effects is bigger? It depends on the price elasticity of demand, because that will determine what happens to revenue. It all depends on the price elasticity of demand. So we go back to the website scenario. Price elasticity and total revenue. Price elasticity of demand is equals to percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price, and revenue is equals to price multiplied by quantity. If demand is elastic, then price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. That is, percentage change in quantity is greater than percentage change in price. Thus we know that the quantity will go down a greater amount, so the fall in revenue from a lower quantity is greater than the increase in revenue from higher price, so revenue falls. And so it's more elastic. People react, they cut back more on your product, and your increased price will not make up for the decreased quantity. And the fall in revenue from lower quantity is greater than the increase in revenue from higher price. So the overall revenue falls in this situation. Now comes price elasticity and total revenue. Using the same example of an elastic demand, the flatter the demand curve, the more elastic it is. Now at price of $200, the quantity demanded is 12 units, and the total revenue is P multiplied by Q, that is 200 multiplied by 12 is equals to $2,400. Now price increases from $200 to $250, and as a result of this increase in price, quantity demanded decreases from 12 to 8 units. Now the revenue is 250 multiplied by 8, that is $2,000. This shaded area is the revenue that is lost due to the lower quantity, and this box, this yellow shaded box, is showing the increased revenue due to higher price. If you observe that the lost revenue is greater than the revenue we gained, as a result of it, total revenue decreased. Initially, total revenue was $2,400, and now it is $2,000. It means that the total revenue decreased with increase in price. When demand is elastic, a price increase causes revenue to fall. If demand is inelastic, then the price elasticity of demand is less than 1. That is, percentage change in quantity is less than percentage change in price. The fall in revenue from lower Q is smaller than the increase in revenue from higher price, so revenue rises in this case. In our example, suppose that Q, that is quantity, only falls to 10 units instead of 8 when you raise your price to $250. So this is the case when demand is inelastic. Here is the graphical representation of the case when demand is inelastic. So now here, as the demand is inelastic, so the demand curve is steeper. It's bit steeper compared to the previous slide. In this case, here the demand curve is flatter when demand is elastic, and in case when demand is inelastic, so the demand curve is steeper. Initially price was $200 and quantity demanded is 12 units. But now as price increases from $200 to $250 and the demand is inelastic now, so there is small decrease in quantity demanded. That is, quantity demanded decreases from 12 units to 10 units. There is a small decrease in quantity as compared to increase in price. So here the lost revenue shown by this area is less than the revenue gained by is shown by this shaded area. So when demand is inelastic, a price increase causes revenue to rise. And the demand, if the demand is inelastic, so the elasticity is 0.82. Now comes active learning, elasticity and expenditure revenue. Question is, pharmacies raise the price of insulin by 10%. Does total expenditure on insulin rise or fall? And question B is, as a result of a fair war, the price of a luxury cruise falls 20%. Does luxury cruise companies' total revenue rise or fall? There is the answer of active learning, part A. Pharmacies raise the price of insulin by 10%. What do we know about insulin is fairly inelastic demand. People need it to survive, so does the total expenditure on insulin rise or fall? We know expenditure is equals to price multiplied by quantity. It's revenue for pharmacies and it's the expenditure for people. Since demand is inelastic, quantity will fall less than 10%, so expenditure rises. People will spend more money to get their insulin. Now come to the answer of question B. As a result of fair war, the price of a luxury cruise falls 20%. Does luxury cruise companies' total revenue rise or fall? Here again, revenue is equals to price multiplied by Q. The fall in price reduces revenue, but quantity increases, which also increase revenue. Now, which effect is bigger? Since the demand is elastic, quantity will increase more than 20%, so revenue rises in this case. Now comes price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply is equals to percentage change in quantity supply over percentage change in price. Price elasticity of supply measures how much quantity supplied respond to a change in price. Loosely speaking, it measures the price sensitivity of seller supply. Now we are looking at if price goes up or down, how does the seller respond? Again, use the midpoint method to compute the percentage changes as we did in case of price elasticity of demand. Now, price elasticity of demand, there is an example here. Here price rises by 8%, means that price goes from P1 to P2, and as a result of increase in price, quantity rises by 16%. That is, from Q1 to Q2, the rise is 16%. So here is a positively sloped supply curve, this one. If you are getting more money, you are going to supply more to gain more. By putting these values in this formula, that the percentage change in quantity supply is 16% over percentage change in price, that is 8%. So 16% divided by 8% is equals to 2.0. So the price elasticity of supply is 2 in this case. The variety of supply curves. Economists classify supply curves according to their elasticity. The slope of the supply curve is closely related to price elasticity of supply. Rule of thumb: the flatter the curve, the bigger the elasticity, and steeper the curve, the smaller the elasticity. The next 5 slides present the different classifications from least to most elastic. So first case is perfectly inelastic, one extreme. Here we have a price rise of 10%. That price increases from P1 to P2 by 10%, and quantity changes by 0%. That means that there is no change in quantity. Supply curve is vertical. Seller's price sensitivity is none and elasticity is 0. The supply curve is vertical. No movement is shown either way, so it's a perfectly inelastic supply. If we put these values in this formula, percentage change in quantity, that is 0, as the supply curve is vertical here, showing no change in quantity. So percentage change in quantity is equals to 0%, and percentage change in price is equals to 10%, as price increases from P1 to P2 by 10%. So 0% divided by 10% is equals to 0. So the price elasticity of supply in this case is 0. It means that this is a situation of perfectly inelastic. It's one extreme of this case. Next is inelastic supply. Here the supply curve is relatively steep. Seller's price sensitivity is relatively low. There is very little movement along Q, as you can see here. You don't cover a great amount of quantity with increase in price. Here price increases by 10%. And quantity rises by less than 10%. So there is relatively small change in quantity as compared to price. So by putting these values in the formula, price elasticity of supply is equals to percentage change in quantity, that is less than 10%, and percentage change in price, that is 10%, is equals to less than 1. So the price elasticity of supply is less than 1, showing inelastic supply. Now comes unit elastic. There is intermediate supply slope and the seller's price sensitivity is also intermediate. Here price rises by 10% and quantity also rises by 10%. So price elasticity of supply is 10% divided by 10% is equals to 1. So here the elasticity is equals to 1, showing equal amount of change in quantity due to change in price. Here price rises by 10%, so is the case for quantity. Quantity also rises by 10%. And here the elasticity is 1. So we can call it unit elastic. Next is elastic supply. Here supply curve is relatively flat. If price rises by 10%, then quantity rises by more than 10%. So there is a greater change in quantity due to increase in price. If price rises by 10%, then you observe here that quantity rises by more than 10%. So if we add these values in this formula, that is percentage change in quantity is greater than 10%, you can add any of the value, and over percentage change in price, that is 10%, so it is equals to greater than 1. So here the elasticity is greater than 1 and we can call it elastic supply. Here the supply curve is also a bit flatter as compared to the previous case. Now comes perfectly elastic supply, the other extreme. Here supply curve is horizontal, seller's price sensitivity is extreme, and elasticity is infinity. If price changes by 0%, now you can see that their price is constant. P1 is equals to P2. There is no change in price. So quantity can change by any percent, and you can see that here is the horizontal supply curve. Price is not changing, price is constant, but quantity changes. At this point it is Q1 and at this point it is Q2. So if price there is no change in price, then quantity changes by any percent, and it's infinite. If we add these values in this formula, so percentage change in quantity is any percent. You can add any number according to the table given to you. Quantity changes by any percent over percentage change in price, that is 0. So it is equals to infinity. Any number divided by 0 is equals to infinity. So here the elasticity is infinity, as supply curve is horizontal here and price is fixed. But in this case, if price is fixed, quantity also changes. So the elasticity in this case is infinity.